30 minutes ahead of schedule, which means that all my preparation time that I had has been taken away. So to make this presentation extemporaneously. Well, let me start by telling you one or two things about VTLS and how do we go back on this. See, I didn't even look at the computer. How do you go back on this slide? About there. Okay, this is the VTLS headquarters building. We were the first spin-off corporation from Virginia Tech, for those of you that are new to us. We do business in 40 countries. We remain independent and profitable as a company. We have 4 products, but I'd like to only talk about 3, Virtua, Vital, and RFID. Of course, the 4th product is Visualizer, that you've been hearing so much about. One more slide on VTLS, and the only thing I want to say is that we employ about 80 people in Blacksburg and 120 people worldwide, and that there are many, many people that have made a career out of working for VTLS, and we have more than 20 years experience with myself, George Nichols, Jack Pizzuzzi, Rebecca Shaver, who's here, John Espley, Ginny Tillage, Todd Perry, and others that have worked for the company for more than 20 years. I counted one day, and there are more than 600 man-years of experience in the company. So we know a little bit about libraries, or maybe we learned the same thing 600 times, I don't know. I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the new directions that we're taking in Virtua. This morning and yesterday you heard about Camo, but I'm going to go beyond Camo and tell you where we are heading in Virtua. Essentially, you heard what is Camo from Becky Shaver, and I'm not going to repeat that. The point I want to make here is that ultimately, Camo will become a replacement for the VTLS iPortal. Not today, not even next year, but sometime in the future, iPortal will ultimately disappear. Camo begins with the release 50. If you're on release 46 or 47 or 48 or 49, you cannot implement Camo. The first implementation of Camo starts with release 50, and then in 2009.3, and on it goes. One of the real reasons of doing Camo was that we needed a very scalable system. We have now customers like the Queen's Public Library that has 24 million circulations a year in a single library. And that represents a high volume. They serve a population of 2 million people. So a lot of OPAC accesses are required. We are handling it comfortably with iPortal. But as that number increases, we need to bring up newer technology that works faster. And that was one of the motivations of doing Camo. Camo had a focus group. We sought user input. We did not want to redesign things, and there was a bunch of really good people that helped the Camo team, and their names are listed here. Some of the people are right here, like Gunil is here, Helen is here, Antoinette is here, and then LFA is here amongst the list that I see up there. Now, let me explain the architecture of the release 49, that means pre-50 release. And then we will show you how Camo morphs into that. The architecture is very simple. We have a virtual Oracle database. The virtual Oracle database is connected to the server, Virtua Server. Virtua Server supports cataloging, circulation, sales, and acquisitions, and the OPAC. Then the virtual client connects to the server, provides all these services. Mostly the staff come to the client, but some users also come through the client into the OPAC and onto the database. The iPortal is connected by the user through the OPAC portion of Virtua Server into the database. Then we have 2 things that talk directly to the database, and that's the Virtual Profiler and the InfoStation. That is the architecture of Virtua 49 release. Now, as we move forward, and this is stage 1. That means what you're seeing of Camo is only the first part of 5 stages of development. In stage 1, you're taking Camo and connecting it directly to the Virtua database. So it's the morphing of Virtua. People that are going to be using Camo will go directly. However, with the client, you'll still be able to use the OPAC. Of course, for a while, you'll see the iPortal also there, but that's the first stage of the development that will take place. In addition, customers were saying that there's a lot of need to provide more information than your catalog. Many libraries are subscribing to digital databases. They're subscribing to content that is not locally stored, and they're creating content of their own. And some of this content is being put in Vital, other content is being put in other digital repositories. So you need to create a portal that does more than just show your catalog. This requires a content management system, and we felt that it was not necessary to build a content management system because there were some good content management systems already available. You just heard in the Sugar presentation that we were using Joomla for Sugar. But there's also a library tendency to move towards a content management system called Drupal. So we analyzed both Drupal and Joomla, and for the purpose of the Camo direction, we chose Drupal. And it gives users a lot of flexibility as to how you create your portal. It creates default skins, and these skins can be things that are used for mobile devices, or for children, or for whatever purpose you want. And then new services from VTLS for Drupal, that customers that need it. So how does Drupal fit in? What we did was have this Camo process with the Camo user interface right here. We added new APIs, connected it to Drupal. Now users can come in through Drupal user interface, and Camo looks like one of Drupal's subsystems. Drupal has hundreds of subsystems or modules, and one of them can be Camo. So you can create an integrated portal from the use of Drupal. You don't have to use Drupal if you don't want to. But if you want to use Drupal, particularly if you have lots of other information outside your catalog, you can use it, and Camo interfaces with it. And that is what I call stage 2 of the development. That gives users 3 options to come in directly through the client, through the Camo user interface, and through the Drupal user interface. Moving forward then, we feel that it'll be time to start taking the circulation aspects, which is also used by people, and start putting it in the same technology that we have Camo in. So circulation will get connected directly to the database, and staff will be able to connect to the Camo circulation module and work directly with that. That'll be stage 3, and we're already working on stage 3. I don't know, sometime in 2010, you'll see the development of a new Circ system that'll run exactly like the new OPAC system is running. That's the development plan that we plan to take. Now I'm going to show you some slides from Rebecca Gunther from the Library of Congress. She made a presentation on July 10th, 2009 at the American Library Association meeting. I'm going to talk about that. One of the points she made in her presentation, and she made many points, was that there's a migration in the library world from the MARC 21 record set into the MARC XML or XML records. That means the whole industry is moving slowly but surely towards the direction of XML. That XML system allows validation to be done easily. We have validation programs now. It allows you to support Ferber and Dublin Core and mods and do tagging of records. All of that can be happened with that. So what we are doing then is taking our cataloging interface, and we'll start supporting XML records in Virtua. You may have noticed in the presentation that Heather made that Vital already supports MARC 21 and XML records, Dublin Core and so forth. Virtua will start supporting XML records too, and that is stage 4A. In stage 4B, we'll make cataloging a part of Camo also in terms of development. So cataloging will come here. So circulation and cataloging will get removed from the Virtua server, and they'll become part of the Camo architecture. Then moving on from there, we go to stage 5, and in stage 5 we eliminate what you know as a virtual server and a virtual client, and everything becomes this Camo type architecture of the future. So that's the direction that we are taking with Virtua. It's a step-by-step direction. The second step depends on the success of the first. The third step depends on the success of the second. So it's a very cautious approach towards morphing all of Virtua as you know it today to the new version of Virtua. Of course, we'll optimize the thing, and there'll be an XML database that will be added to the system over here when we do this morphing. Moving on then, in addition to the work we're doing in Virtua morphing, we are of course marching towards RDA. RDA, as you know, stands for Resource Description and Access, and that is the new AACR2 follow-up. Instead of going to AACR3 cataloging rules, RDA will become the new cataloging rules, and it is based on FOBR implementations. And essentially what they're talking about in RDA is that scenario 3, which is flat files database structures that some system uses, is the lowest form of implementation. Scenario 2 is where you have linked bibliographic records and authority records. Virtua already does that. Scenario 1 is to have relational and object-oriented database structure. And that is where RDA will come in. And VTLS does RDA now to about 95%. Soon we'll be doing some more development in RDA and announcing the full implementation of RDA as soon as the purveyors of the standard publish the official version of the standard, which of course hasn't happened yet. So basically there's a lot of experimentation going on in RDA, FOBR, and RDF, and this is from Rebecca. And she said at the American Library Association meeting, these are her words, that VTLS has implemented a FOBR-based system using MARC. She talks about the thing that VTLS is doing. She also recommends those people that are interested in RDA to read Martha Yee's article in the Information Technology and Libraries, volume 28, number 2. So I recommend that if you're interested in RDA to actually read that article. She goes on to say more. She provides examples of FOBR implementation of MARC on VTLS. She describes how the FOBR implementation is done in VTLS. Of course, our VTLS customers already know that, so I won't go into that. Next topic I want to cover, and I won't be very long, is the 25th anniversary celebrations. There's several announcements that take place. The announcements are global support services, which you just heard from Sylvia. VTLS Customer Connections, that's the newsletter that we are printing and that was in your package. And then we have a lot of customers that have been with us for 25 or more years. Here's a list of customers: University of New England, Southern Queensland, Arlington Public Library, Tennessee, Blend, and so forth. So there are many customers that have used our system for more than 25 years. Now, in a technological environment where technology changes so rapidly, the question to ask, and a lot of the newspaper people have been asking me the question, why is it that VTLS customers stick so long with VTLS? And I was groping for answers. So I decided to write to these directors and said, what is your answer? Why have you been with us for 30 years or 35 years? And I'm getting back some very interesting answers. So in about 2 weeks, when all the answers come back, we'll publish those answers so you can see what our customers think as to why they work with VTLS for so many years. And of course, we are very delighted to be in this wonderful library outside. So I was taking some pictures over the last couple of days, and I thought I'd throw some of them up here. It is just super beautiful library. Going on to the 25th anniversary, in your package, there was a press release about VTLS celebrates 25 years of services and commitment to libraries. And it says in the very last sentence, so now we invite you to celebrate with us, watch for future announcements, you heard some of them, new events, and you'll see more of those, and special offers to our customers as we proudly commemorate our 25th anniversary. So the special announcement, which we made in an informal way over the last day, but we now make it formally, from October 1st, 2009 to June 30th, 2010, all existing VTLS customers can buy VTLS products at a 25% discount from list price. Now, what is meant by VTLS customers? Of course, all of you are VTLS customers. If you have a valid VTLS maintenance contract in operation, that means you have an installed system and it is under maintenance, then you're considered a VTLS customer and therefore you're entitled for the 25% discount, and most of you are entitled for that. So this is for products, not for custom development or special services and so forth. And the discount is 25% on this price. And it is good through June 30th, 2010, which means you should have paid for those services within the next 9 months, basically. We're giving you plenty of time. We want you to take advantage of it. You saw Visualizer, you saw Vital, you saw all the other products over the last 2 or 3 days. If you want to get it, now is the time. Because as 25th anniversary, we are going to make a 25% discount. When we said this to some customers in the US, they said, when you have the 100th anniversary, will you give a 100% discount? Well, if I live that long, I will. We've also reorganized our customer groups. The customer groups basically are that all retailers users and any products belong to each one of these regions: North America, Australia, Europe, Asia, North America, and Southeast Asia, and they're handled by each of these offices. We used to have a big umbrella organization, and that umbrella organization is going to become decentralized because it's very difficult to do worldwide coordination with all these offices. Each one of these offices will have their own independent users group meeting. This says VTLS Spain because the office is located there, but VTLS Europe is the official name of the office that handles Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and this is essentially their meeting. Moving on, just a few words on industry trends. First of all, what we see happening in the industry is a lot of open source software. People have come up with integrated library systems that are open source. Our approach has been that more important than open source and the ability to dabble with open source is good service that comes with it. And good service comes with the product that you have total control over. Recently we had a problem in Vital that took so long to handle because it is a mixture of open source products and our product. Finally we got it solved. But we think that open source will play a very important role in the future of VTLS, and therefore all of our new products, Visualizer has open source components, Vital has open source components like Lucene and Solar and Fedora, and Virtua has already started using Lucene and Solar engines and will use other open source components. Will our software be open source? I don't know that. We probably will keep it proprietary source for the incoming future. There's a lot of social tagging going on, which you heard about Camo. The repository developments are happening. Each year, we are generating, as humankind, 5 exabytes of data. To tell you what 5 exabytes of data is, if you were watching television, you would have to watch televisions for 80 years non-stop to see 5 exabytes of data. And we're generating that much data each year. So clearly the focus will be people developing data and putting them into local repositories. With this amount of data, you'll need discovery tools. People are moving towards software as a service and towards something we call cloud computing. And I'm going to talk about cloud computing in a moment. We have a customer here that just left. Her name is Chantal de Witt. She's from University of Nijmegen. For her, we have cloud computing for her virtual operation. They only have PCs in their library. Their server is sitting in the Barcelona office. And their backup server is sitting in the Blacksburg office in Virginia. So the day-to-day operations are handled in Barcelona, and the backup and recovery operations are handled in USA. To them, their operation is what would be the equivalent of cloud computing operation. But it's not truly cloud computing, because I'll tell you what truly cloud computing is. Cloud computing is like electricity. It's always available. You use as much as you need. You pay for what you use, so you don't pay for idle capacity. So cloud computing is very similar. It's like having IT resources on the network. And you pay only for what you use and not for the idle capacity that sits unused. In other words, cloud computing is on demand, as needed, scalable IT resources that can be purchased over the internet. In the last 2 months, we've taken all of the VTLS products, all of them, Visualizer, Vital, Virtua. We didn't do that with RFID, but we put those on clouds that are provided by Amazon. We're now negotiating with clouds from Sun Computer Systems to see how the environment works in true cloud computing. There's some problems to be solved, but it's feasible. We have understood the feasibility, and I didn't make the network connection because we came half an hour too early, but I was shown you the working of a Visualizer on the cloud that is available now. So moving on, cloud computing has 3 components. We've already talked about software as a service. Some people heard Ferber software as a service. And of course, we have platform as a service like Sun Computers, HP Computers, and infrastructure, meaning networking as a service. When you have these 3 services, then you get cloud computing. Basically, there are 5 things you do in computers. You have compute cycles, you have storage, you have bandwidth, you have software, and you have services. And if you have all of those things happening by an outside agency that you don't have to deal with it, then you're in the view of cloud computing. Cloud computing's primary benefits are that they're lower cost, there's greater reliability, there's no capital investment, there are reduced personnel requirements, and there's protection against rapid obsolescence. But there are other things, there are privacy concerns. There's a law in Europe that says personnel data cannot be exported out of Europe for computer systems that are made and functioning in Europe. But if you put your personnel data, like your personnel records in the library system, people records in the library system, if you put it on the cloud, you have no control over where it goes. And by definition, you could be in violation of European regulations as far as personal data is concerned. So you really have to be aware of that. Many of you have multiple virtual licenses. In cloud computing, it's very difficult to manage those licenses. There are data concerns when you move from one release to another. Those have to be handled, and it becomes very difficult to manage those in cloud computing. And we found there's some performance concerns. That's not to say you won't have cloud computing. It says that these problems have to be worked out through legislation or politics or whatever. But cloud computing is the direction that most people will go to, particularly small libraries will go to cloud computing faster than big libraries that have personnel resources and money and so forth. So that's the future of cloud computing. I'll just go over these things. And for those of you that will have this address, and I don't know if there's an internet connection, if there is, I'll click on this at the end, and you can hear people talk about cloud computing. There's a lot of confusion out there about cloud computing. One lady was asked in this particular YouTube interview as to what is cloud computing. And she said, cloud computing is when you take your laptop on an airplane, you're flying above the clouds. That's called cloud computing. So there you go. This second thing tells you how to configure your computing on the clouds. And there are different types of clouds, like research clouds and administrative clouds and so forth. And you can look at this at your leisure. In the future, we'll be focusing on 5 things. That's what we'll be doing, and probably you should be. And our priorities will be this: format independence. I told you what we're trying to do with format independence. Go to XML and mods and METs and so forth. Mobile access. Already you saw in Camo how we are formatting access, so your iPhones and your Blackberries can have access to the content, and we'll be focusing on that. Link record system, that is what FOBR is, that is what RDA is, that is what we've already done in Virtua, and that'll be the focus as we move forward. Link records have a very special meaning in multilingual subjects. We've been talking to many of our European customers on multilingual subjects for almost 10 years now. I'm happy to report finally, in the last week and a half, we've received a go-ahead and funding to start implementing some multilingual subject heading systems in Virtua. There's on-demand and open delivery. People want to get things immediately. That requires authentication, and authentication that we're using today is called LDAP. Many of you are using LDAP. Shibboleth will be the way that the authentication will take place, and this will be a single sign-on for all access control. So we'll be moving in that direction. And deep linking. For those of you that came to my session on FOBR SaaS, Software as a Service, we showed what is deep linking in going from a FOBR database to a non-FOBR database and back and forth. And deep linking will become more and more the implementation of things. As you use discovery tools to find things, and you go to a destination to get things, that has to be done by deep linking. For example, in the NDLTD database, we did a search for a thesis that was in Hong Kong. When we connected to the Hong Kong University, they made us do that search again. And that is not deep linking. Deep linking is when you find something in the discovery system, you connect to it, it takes you to the exact record in a remote system without repeating the search. And that's what deep linking is about, and that's what we'll be focusing on. Now I'm going to close with these last two slides here. And it's a point that some of you have heard me say is the role of libraries. The role of libraries can best be defined as removing barriers. The first barrier libraries remove is spatial barriers. That means libraries are located all over the globe. They bring things printed in China and India and Timbuktu and Warsaw and bring it to your local library. Library removes temporal barriers, time-related barriers, things that were published 100 years ago, 400 years ago, as in this library, you're able to get now. So I have a side question that I want to ask in the interest of time. Then libraries remove financial barriers. That means you buy the books and you make it free for the reader community to have. That's what traditional libraries do. The role of libraries will have to change in the future, and will change into what I call removing intellectual barriers. Discipline independence in a multidisciplinary world. No matter how much I know about my discipline, whether it be computer science or libraries, there will be some discipline I know nothing about, like medicine, for example. And if I have need for medical information, and I will have need as I get older, and I'll have to be able to find those resources by myself without knowing the vocabulary of that discipline to find information. Therefore, we need discovery tools that make discovery discipline independent. Language independent. We have a wonderful vital implementation in Greek that Jack showed me some months ago, and they had Greek costumes. Now I wanted to see those Greek costumes, but do I have to learn Greek to be able to search in order to find those? Because I don't need to be able to read Greek to look at Greek costumes. So I should have a search mechanism that allows me to access that material without having to learn a different language. Because no matter how many languages I learn, there will always be some language I know nothing about. And therefore our future systems have to be language independent. So the question is, should it be necessary to learn Chinese and Arabic to see a movie in Chinese and Arabic and so forth? Finally, literacy independence. And this is where the librarians really have difficulty, because librarians are all about literacy. And I'm saying, is it really necessary to be able to be literate in a multimedia world? I'll leave that as a question for you and conclude by saying our great thanks to the University of Gdansk libraries. These are the two buildings we visited over the last couple of days. They're absolutely wonderful buildings. Last time we came here, we came to the University of to the University of Warsaw, and they had beautiful buildings there too. So the quality of your facilities in Poland between the time I came here first many years ago and now is certainly changing very, very dramatically. These conferences take a lot of effort to organize, and